Well, there you have it. Episode 21 of The Witch of Mercury. We are pretty much getting into the climactic battle. It just rushed right into it, which honestly was kind of predictable, kind of assuming this was the direction the final battle was going to go. Everybody against Prospera. Yes, even including Suletta. And equally, hitting into my prediction that Suletta is probably not going to make it. I sort of have this chart, if people missed my last video, this chart of who I think is the high probability of dying, the mid, and the low. And Suletta, I don't know if I put her in the mid or in the high, but I'm putting her up there. I'm putting her up there as a possibility of dying, and I think this episode pretty much solidified that, yep, that's the direction they could go. This idea that Miorine, I don't think Miorine's going to die. I think she's going to be the one at the very end of the whole show that's standing there talking to the people and telling them everything is going to be Daijobu. And Suletta is going to die. She's going to be sort of the final blow on the bad side of everything and just kind of removing herself from the picture. And I think that is, again, solidified with this episode and this idea that she's going to be piloting another Gundam. Now, this other Gundam not having the safeguards. Now, the only thing that can fix that, with is eventually realizing that Suletta, just like Edict, can protect herself from the data storm. There's nothing that's been proven so far that she can't handle the data storm. Just that the fact that Edict was carrying that burden. And there's a good possibility that Suletta, being from her, could have pulled that off. I don't know if Prospera may have checked that at some point, like, oh yeah, just like all the rest of them, she can't either. Edict's gonna have to carry it. But from Prospera's perspective, she didn't need to check that. She already had Edict carrying that burden. Why would she need to check to see if Suletta, as a clone, was going to be able to do that? So there's the only thing that could possibly save Suletta. Maybe it's going to be an aspect that because she is, cloned from Edict, she has a portion that she can be invulnerable to the data storms, but not completely. She can partially sync with it. But we'll have to wait and see. But right now, like I said, it's really flagging Suletta as being a character that through self-sacrifice will sort of end this entire ordeal. But yeah, what an episode. This episode, I'm like partially hype and then partially like, holy crap, slow down. There was an element of me going, slow down. Like it literally opens up with, it's the same day because Suetta's still down on Earth. And she's already being announced as being the next president. After all this crap happened, oh yeah, she's also the next president. Yay. Good on you. She comes to the spaceship, or she goes back into space. There's this whole meeting with Gil, and Gil's like, oh man, I heard what happened back down there. So it's like literally within the same day. Miorine is being blamed for this whole catastrophe. She's being the next president, and then she's coming up here, and Gil's apologizing, and is up. They're all upset, and it's like, wait, slow down. Do we have the elections? When do the elections happen? None of that stuff is covered. It's just boom, next president. Not that it's like I need to have like this long montage of who all selected who to be the president. We already kind of know who in the Bennett group is siding with who. But still, it felt a little fast. But it didn't last long. It was like almost one of those aspects of like, who cares, because everything's falling apart. Now, again, I think Miorine being in that position that she was going to be titled as the next head of the Bennett group is going to be important for how everything sort of unfolds. Because it does seem like in this story, they're still trying to have this hope within everything that we can resolve this. That before everything comes to a head, they can still kind of resolve this for the general public. Because it's not as if they're broadcasting to the entire world, hey, by the way, the Assembly League's forces are going over here and they just got wiped out. This is something that seemingly only the Bennett group and certain people are privy to. So it might not be something that the general public is going to know about. So there still is an aspect that when the dust settles, Miorine can still be ahead of the Bennett group as everything sort of unfolds and is taken out, which is, again, technically Prospera. But no, there is a struggle that I have right now with Miorine. And I understand why she's in the position that she is. She is broken. Everything is my fault, but it continues to be everything's my fault. This is my fault. This is my fault. All these people dying on Earth is my fault. Everything with the Assembly League going in there and rushing in there, that's my fault. Now, while I don't agree with her being at fault for what happened on Earth, it sort of is the same reason why I would think that, yes, technically she is partially at fault with what happens with the Assembly and Quiet Zero. She gave Prospera the tools she needed. She was essentially working with Prospera. She could have turned down Prospera, but she worked alongside her. And again, technically she brought Prospera with her, and yes, technically she gave Prospera the tools she needs to eventually activate Quiet Zero. So yeah, she's technically is partly at fault. But there is a hope there that eventually, and it's probably going to be through Suletta getting involved, that she finally stands up and says, all right, I'm going to fix this. And I think that was a good thing with what Sarius said. Eventually, when Miorine talks to Sarius, which, my gosh, I can't believe Sarius actually shows some kind of spine. But again, at that point, most of this series, Sarius has been pretty passionate about what he believes in the Gundams. And he is not the type that, yes, he has done things here and there that are pretty shady, but he was always limiting himself. And that's what made Shadiq mad. Shadiq hated how limited he was. And you could say that partially why Sarius was always limiting himself is because he didn't want to cross that line. Shadiq was willing to cross that line. Sarius wasn't. So it does make sense that eventually when everything starts to come ahead, he says, look, Miorine, you're going to have to distance yourself from Glassly. You're going to have to distance yourself from me. Blame it all on me. I'll take it. Again, what has been his thing this whole time? The future of Benerit. He just cares about the future of Benerit. He always has. So even if he is a scumbag, he's still a good scumbag in a sense. So yes, he's taken it upon himself. And I like what he says to Miorine. He says, man, if only Delling had taught you more. He's noting the idea that Delling would have handled this. Delling would have kept everything together. He obviously didn't have enough time to teach you, or he didn't teach you enough. Then he gives her the option. Just blame it all on me. I'll take it. You need to focus on the future of Benerit. And it does seem like, despite the fact that she now has this new kind of nudge in the direction she needs to go, with everything unfolding, she's going to break again. So I'm hoping within the next few episodes, we're going to actually see that moment that Miorine finds that purpose, that courage to stand up like her father would. Everything around Suletta, I'm sort of pleased, but at the same time, it's a little bit simple, but that's not a bad thing. Suletta, we kind of got a sign of it in the last episode, and this idea that finally Suletta has purpose. She did something on her own that her mother didn't have to tell her. She's now disconnecting herself from her mother and choosing to do things. And with the last episode, it was going and, recovering people. And then in this episode, it's taking the tomatoes and passing them out to people. The way that she put it is that she discovered something in handing out those tomatoes. Even if I don't gain anything, I have to do what I can do. And the whole point there is to her usual phrase that her mother gave her. Run away, gain 1. Go forward, gain 2. Now she's learning that I can go forward and not, even if I can't gain anything, I have to do what I can do. And that's a good thing. It's kind of, and again, it's that evolution of that statement. Run away, gain 1. Go forward, gain 2. Going forward with the choice that might not be the best, but it's what you have to do. And now, go forward even if you don't gain anything, because you have to do what you can do. Again, it's simple in our mind, but I guess it's very impactful in Suetta's mind. This is enough to push her that she needs to do what she can do. And it all comes down to the point, which later part, here's an option that she has to do what she can do in order to talk to Edict and Mother once more. Because obviously she's not happy with what they're doing. It's just she's always been standing on the wayside thinking, well, they're doing what they have to do, even though it doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do. And it also seems like through her conversations with everybody, she's sort of acceptant of what she is, even though it does seem kind of depressing. It doesn't seem like she's fully sad, but you can sense something in there. They did a really good job of sort of subtly portraying the fact that she's not too happy about everything. That she is a clone, that Mother only cared about Edict. And even to the point where when they're wanting her to help, it's like, well, I can't talk to her because she's not going to listen to me. She doesn't care about me as much as she does her actual daughter. And it is interesting that she has come to the realization that she has never been this special person that can pilot these Gundams without being harmed. Now, granted, when she was first piloting it, she didn't really realize that that was the case. Everybody was telling her, it'll harm you. And she's like, no, Mother wouldn't do that to me. She didn't know that the reason why was because Edict was always carrying that burden. And in realizing that, I think there is an element of her realizing that she's not special in any way. But again, I think that's going to play into this idea that she can technically carry that. It's just she's never tried or never had the opportunity to. The scene between Miorine and Shadiq. Interesting, again, it's sort of implying this idea that he did everything he did because the option for getting with Miorine failed. Again, for those who don't remember, when the show first started, Shadiq and Gyul were after Miorine. And Shadiq would have gone after Miorine, but Gyul took his place. But Miorine was that option that he had to take down the Banneret group. But he lost it to Gyul. He gave it to Gyul. And eventually, when Gyul got out of the picture, he kind of walked away from that option. But it does seem like in this episode, he's sort of indicating that to Miorine. I had an option, but, and again, I think it was that option was Miorine. There's sort of an understanding between Miorine and Shadiq that this is something that had to happen, that she believes that Shadiq was in the right mind and wanting this equality between the Spatians and Earthians. It's just that he stepped over the line. And that's the thing that she's criticizing him for, but at the same time, she's like, I understand. He's despicable for using cowardly means, but she's just as guilty. What was that? Using Suletta. And eventually using Prospera, and that blowing up in her face. She was using other people to gain power. Apparently Petra's alive. That was a side of me that thought about that last video. I'm like, I don't really want to say that she's dead because who knows? She could be alive. But yes, that is becoming a catalyst to this thing that's annoying me. I'm done with the whole Nika and Ellen thing in the room with Norie. Now we're going into Gyul's brother, Lauda. Lauda is gonna be the annoying revenge guy on the side. It's like everybody, all the characters right now, I understand what they're doing. But yeah, Lauda over here is gonna be that, oh, are you really doing this? Do we have to do this? Yes. It was one of those things that, because I don't understand the character, because I'm not really getting this too much, and I think it's kind of a little bit too, it's like, just talk to a couple people and you'll probably figure this out really quickly, but you're never going to talk to anybody. It was one of those things where at the end of this episode, you have Lauda standing there, and he's talking about how he's going to get him back, and I'm like, all right, who are you going to pick to be the bad guy? Oh, it's Miorine, okay. It's like, a character, when they're talking like that, you should know exactly who they're going to name. Lauda? No, it was literally a gamble. Like, I hit the spin, and I'm just waiting for what name it's going to land on. Oh, he chooses Miorine. Miorine is the reason why all this happened. And yes, technically that goes back to what Shadiq said, that he blames Gyul. Like, these people have chosen who, in this whole grand scheme of things, where it broke. And specifically with Shadiq, he chose that, Gyul, you made a bad decision here, and that caused all this. So I do understand the string of mentality, but it ignores everything in the middle there. That's exactly what Lauda is doing. It's exactly what Shadiq did with Gyul. And it's just going to be that same thing. Okay, Lauda, at what point did you believe that Miorine caused everything? Let's get into this. So yeah, he's going to be on the sideline going after Miorine, which, whatever. He'll be a revenge plot line that'll blow up eventually later, and we'll just go, okay, shrug and move on with our lives, because honestly, Lauda is like the least interesting character of this entire show. Yes, I have to note before I forget, as they were handing out the tomatoes, Choo Choo handed the tomatoes to the girl that she punched. I like somebody made a comic strip with the tomato, the punch, and then the tomato instead. Again, it's showing a lot of these characters growing and changing their perspective, and it's through really Suletta choosing to do something in the midst of everything. As everybody's sitting around going, wah, wah, we're Spatians, we don't ever have problems, and why are we stuck here? I want to go home. This is the first time they're dealing with this, whereas the Earthians have dealt with this for a long time. Suletta is the one few person that's standing up and saying, I'm going to do something right now. Which gives a lot of credit to Suletta compared to anybody else, in the idea that why in this situation is the one that barely does anything on her own is suddenly doing things. But yeah, going back to the overall plotline, Miorine being assigned as president, they're seemingly kind of trying to sweep a lot of this stuff under the rug, but at some point, despite the fact that it seems like this is the direction they're going, the idea that Miorine is going to be the next president, she's going to kind of fix everything, it immediately crumbles because the pill industries decided to make their move. And because everything's sort of burning, they're like, let's get in with the Assembly League. And so they went to the Assembly League and essentially made this big announcement that all this crazy stuff's been happening in the Bennett group. They're the whistleblowers. And so that gives the Assembly the means to just go in and intervene with the Bennett group. So I'm guessing the Peel Industries believes that once they do this, they can, at least hold some sort of position of power, because right now they're the lowest totem pole, lowest of the totem pole on the Bennett group. And yes, the Assembly comes in at the same time. Prospera launches the Quiet Zero, and man, pretty much what I was expecting. Just this big, massive dome of disabling anything in its path, and just a massacre. And that was kind of the unsettling thing, is like when they first came up to the Quiet Zero, it's like one of those aspects of, okay, here's a big battle, it's breaking out, people shooting back and forth. The unsettling aspect of this is unmanned drone type mobile suits destroying piloted mobile suits. But it gets even worse in the idea that at some point they just disable everything, and then it's just shooting practice. Like it becomes a lot more unsettling, the idea that nobody can fight back. It just becomes a massacre. And again, that was sort of what I assumed was going to happen. Now the big question mark is this the limited area? The whole idea behind her reaching a certain permit score, was that she can just shoot it out to everywhere. All the fronts will be covered with this spreading of the data, spreading edict everywhere. But why is it limited to this one area? Is it because it's too far out still and she's got to slowly move it into the fronts and then she's got to activate? That's my assumption. When they first got the Ariel in there, I was thinking, okay, here we go. It's done. All the mobile suits are going to be disabled. The only ones that are going to be usable is maybe manual ones or something like that. But again, I guess they can't really do that because then Suletta can't go and fight back. Some other points, yes, Ellen decides to join the group. Nika, why? Why, Nika? Nika had to open her mouth. Like, you had this just fine scene where Suletta's going to join this inspector to take down Prospera, and then Belle's like, yeah, we have this one Gundam, but it's going to hurt you and stuff. And then suddenly out of nowhere, Nika's like, well, what are you talking about? You're the one that did all that stuff with Peel Industries. I'm like, oh, so that's why they had her in that room that whole time, is that so she can yell at Belle, and then Belle's going to start whining again. Belle was doing just fine, and now she's whining again. But no, Ellen joins. This is one of those puzzling things. Like, Ellen comes in and is like, I'll join you guys too. Let me go with you. And it's like, okay, you're going to help then. No, he's like, I just want to get out of here. And I'm not going to pilot a Gundam. And it's like, well, then why are you here? I guess he could pilot another mobile suit. But it's like one of those, okay, well, if you're not going to do what we need you to do, no, we're not taking you with us. It's like, why is everybody like, shrug, okay, I guess Ellen's coming along. No, just say, no, Ellen, you're not coming with us. You're a wanted criminal. What are you going to do, whine to somebody? I guess, yes, he could rat them out. He'll get captured, but he can rat them out at the same time. But we'll see where it goes from here. Like I said, my prediction is really the idea they're going to go after Quiet Zero as it's coming towards all the fronts, and we're going to find out that Suletta can actually pilot without... Not that she's going to be completely without harm, but she's going to be probably fighting back quite a bit. Like, she's going to be able to sync with it somehow. But I still think my darker prediction is that it's going to affect her somehow, and it's going to possibly, when she gets a permit score higher, that's when it's going to kind of unsync. Just like her mother. Her mother was able to go so far before it was going to have problems. But I think it's going to be this big conflict, but eventually it's going to come down to Suletta probably talking to Edict, figuring out what she really wants. She's going to want what her mother wants, but then she's being used. The grins you get from Prospera, it obviously looks like she just wants revenge. After this episode, I really don't feel like, based on how she's talking to Edict and everything, she's thanking Edict and stuff, it doesn't really feel like Prospera is doing this for Edict. She's doing it for herself. She wants revenge. And I think that's going to be the breaking point for the whole story, is this idea that, yes, you can sympathize with Prospera, thinking, okay, well, yeah, I kind of want Prospera to win because then she can spread Edict everywhere. But I don't think that's what she actually wants. She just wants revenge. She's using Edict right now. She's not helping Edict. But we'll see. Anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 21 of Gundam The Witch of Mercury. How many episodes do we have left? I think it's 24 or something like that. But we'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you got my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, and membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care.